Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and I'm your host, Adrian Daniela. Today, we have with us in the studio Suzanne Hopson. Welcome to the show, Suzanne.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm really excited to be here. Hi,
Su-
everybody.
Suzanne is the founder and principal at Here to Elevate. Suzanne, take us through your journey a little bit. Just let us in on your journey. Tell us about your journey in multifamily, your journey as a consultant, your journey as an industry leader.
Sure. Well, it starts a couple of decades ago. I won't exactly age myself, but I will say that I have been in and familiar with multifamily for several years. I started out as a leasing consultant at a student property in Lansing, Michigan. And I, like many others, fell into our industry when I was actually renting an apartment myself. And so the person that I hired or that hired me had a tremendous impact on the trajectory of my career. And I know we'll talk a lot about leadership and what that really means later on. But she really saw something in me that I didn't see myself. And so she brought me in. And back then, I will say this, I wasn't really considered a leasing specialist yet because I was new. And so they referred to me fondly as the phone girl. So I was the phone girl and I was responsible, which would totally not be appropriate today, right? But I was responsible for renewals and leasing, and it was a student property. So I cut my teeth on the best of the best. So from there, I entered several different positions and companies, traveling around Michigan primarily to the Detroit area, where I worked for Concord Management, McKinley, Marquette, and landed through those management jobs an opportunity to come to Indiana to help someone that I'd worked with prior on what she considered some repositioning of assets and really the whole company. And so I moved to Indiana back in the early 2000s, and there I really got into the marketing track and operations track for new lease ups, as well as affordable housing. And at that point in my career, we went through the 2008, 2009 cycle, and I made a switch over to the vendor side. I decided to make the jump, and I think they call it the dark side, the great side. They've called it many things, but I made the jump over to Grace Hill. And I actually spent about 6 years there as an account manager. And during that time, I got married. I had a baby. So I spent a lot of time really on my family life and my home life. And also got the opportunity to work with 135 other property management companies and being able to deep dive into their operations and how they train and develop people was just really a great learning experience for me. So then after that, I decided I wanted to get back into operations. And I had been out of it for 6 years. And we know, being out of that side of the business for any length of time, things are moving so fast, Adrian, I had to get back up to speed. So I went into a regional role. And after a couple of years, I wanted to really to trajectory myself into the next level. And so I ended up joining a group, which most of you are familiar with from my background, called TriCat, residential group out of Chicago. And they were really in startup mode at around 1,000 units. And we ended up tripling the portfolio over a very short amount of time. And in that time, I wore many different hats as usual. So went in as director of property management, spent a good chunk of time in the sales and marketing role, became president of operations, and then president of that company, which then leads me to today. And I recently launched my own executive fractional firm offering services from COO to marketing to operations, many different facets to that offering. But I've been doing that now since June of this year. And through that, I have cultivated some great relationships and clients, as well as also starting my own Vistage chair practice. where I get to be the leader of a peer advisory group for CEOs in my geographical area. So primarily my focus has been national. And now I'm really building relationships right in my own backyard, which it seems I haven't really done. So it's been exciting to get to really know just really what's right outside the door in that capacity. So that's what I've been up to, Adrian.
You had a very diverse career spanning between operations, training, sales, marketing, HR, technology, construction. So, like, the list goes on, right? Uh, I'm curious, which area has been the most challenging to you and why?
Yeah, I think rapid growth in all of those areas has, proven to be a challenge for either the people that I've represented as an employee, or on the other side of it, in helping my clients. And so, rapid growth, specifically around technology and people, um, has been challenging for organizations, and um, it has caused a bit of rub and friction. All natural things, right? But I would say probably in the last decade, we're seeing that the need to be able to adapt and pivot to technologies, and really how to position ourselves as a great place to work for our multi-generational pool of people and employees. That has been challenging for organizations.
You mentioned technology and people. So I'd like to take them one at a time and kind of discuss the challenge, discuss the opportunities that we have there as an industry. So let's just start with people, right? Which, they're the core of our business. What are the main challenges related to people that you have noticed in the industry? And then how do we overcome those challenges? How do we see the areas of opportunity, and how do we take those opportunities and make the best of them?
Yeah, and Adrian, you and I have had lots of conversations around this, and you really are a spokesperson in our space about people and the challenges that even specific, like really drilling down into specific roles, those challenges have been substantial. And so, in talking to operators and being in partnership with them, one of the largest people issues is being able to fill our service roles, our service team roles with qualified people. And so, there's a shortage, right? There's just a shortage of people for those particular roles. And so that continues to be a challenge in my mind, you know, front and center. And then secondarily, there are some additional roles that continue to be challenging. I think, when you're the second part to that question was, what are we really working towards to fix that, or to reposition ourselves for improvement in that area. I see more and more conversations coming up now about, that apprentice track, or, really being able to look at how to bring in people that may not have all of the skills, but have the right core value fit, the right attitude, the right people skills. So I know there's a lot of conversation in the space about how do we really do that? How do we duplicate those efforts across an organization so that people are feeling supported and trained in the specific skill sets that they need? I think to that same point, simultaneously, and this is really, I think, post-pandemic, the world is a difficult place right now. And so our residents are more challenging and demanding. Our teams are more stressed and more pressured than they've been in times past. And so how are we really helping them to handle those types of interactions more effectively than perhaps we have in the past as leaders? So I see training, and I see, really being that support for the team development, and still working simultaneously to create tracks and interest for people who want to progress. And yet at the same time, not necessarily being the end all be all organization for our employee pool. They may spend some time with us, right? It may not be 10 years or 15 years, but it may be, an impactful the first 2 years of their career, and what will they experience in our organization. So I know that was a long answer, but it's a big topic, right?
It's probably the biggest topic, right? Because at the end of the day, we have resources, we have technology, we have, you name it, a long list of things, but they mean nothing without the people
Yeah.
using those resources.
Yeah.
So the next one I want to talk about is technology, right? What are the challenges that you see, systemic challenges, and then what are some areas of opportunity for us in the industry? How do we overcome those challenges?
Yeah. I think probably the most prominent one is just the amount of technology that we have at our disposal. It is everywhere, and there are startups that are, surfacing continuously. It's ongoing. And so, I think, and I've been talking about this for a while now, as have others, really having some expertise in how to stack your technology in your organization so that it's working well for your end user, both your internal and your external customer, all throughout the business cycle and process. And I think that is still a long ways out from being really streamlined and easy to figure out. I also think that, for the end user, both in our service roles, that frontline group, as well as even our leasing roles and property manager roles, it's difficult to manage the technology where they can really feel the efficiency of it. So we have a lot of technology, but it's still not necessarily working in every respect to eliminate time and struggle and obstacles from their day-to-day work. So the adaption of technology has been, or adoption of technology has been a struggle too. Not everyone is trained in using the technology, and so there's this gap, this skills gap that occurs, in certain roles. And so I think that's part of the challenge of getting technology in correctly. Is one, is it really talking to each other in your tech stack, and is it considering the customer workflow? From an end user perspective, both internal and external, and then how are we training people on how to use it, and then measuring the effectiveness of it going forward, being able to adapt, pivot, make changes where necessary.
So last week I was at Uptech, the prop tech, um, like the main, I guess, the main industry conference for prop tech mainly. We're specialized in prop tech, and one of the panels, the conversation was, our leasing agents are expected to be proficient in 48 different pieces of software. You're talking about an entry level person that needs to be proficient in 48 different pieces of tech, and they're entry level. Of course, they gotta get paid entry level paid. And then someone says, okay, well, you're in a good spot because our company, the number is 63. So when too much is too much, and how do we overcome that? That's a real problem. And how do we overcome the overlap? Because I'm sure that there's so much prop tech out there. Well, I'm seeing it myself. There's so much prop tech out there that's not fully used. We use bits and pieces from different pieces of tech, and then we just keep adding tech on top of tech on top of tech. When does that stop? And when do we stop punishing our people with technology? What's your
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Yeah, loaded question, right? If I have the answer to this, I probably I might be on a different show tomorrow. I don't know the exact answer, but I can say this: simple is better. And when I'm looking at how some of my other clients are running their businesses that are not running on really complex stacks, and they're able to meet their goals, the question is, how are they doing it, right? And what is the difference between how they're doing it and how everybody else is doing it? And so, to your point, I think that simplicity in the journey, the customer journey, and looking at it from that standpoint to the ultimate end user, or the top person who's going to be using the data and the information and delivering the results. We do it backwards. We do it the opposite way, and it's not any surprise that it gets convoluted in between. The answer to that, again, I think it's customer journey mapping. I think it is, following it from the customer perspective and walking in their shoes and looking at where the inefficiencies are and the brokenness of that, and getting, prop tech really on board for solving for those problems. I think what's interesting is that, some of the smaller players are the ones that are using the most simplest forms of the technology, and they're not having a lot of these issues. So that tells me that, the big companies, right, the ones that are looking for people to be on their roadmap meetings and, in the thick of testing out and beta testing their products, should really have a wide breadth of usage there, not just the big property management company players, but some of the smaller ones that are achieving results with less technology. So how can we adapt, a more simple stack to get it done and price it accordingly so that, it's competitive?
There's something else that I'm seeing, and this relates to how technology is being built. Companies decide that, hey, we're going to build this product, amazing product. They're hiring people that could write code. You could call them fancy developers, whatever, but people that build this technology. And then the second thing, they're hiring salespeople. And then you have two entities right there, people that are building it, people that are selling what has been built. They're going typically to the top of the organizations, to president, vice president, president of operations, CEO. They're making their sales pitch. The person looks at it. If they like it, they like, great, this looks great. Let's just implement it. Let's just buy the stack. The next thing that you know, they're taking their product and they're pushing it to the site level. In this picture that I described right here, end user is nowhere to be found. You have individuals that they're developing products that don't have any idea of what the end user experience is like. Like I'm seeing this all the time. I'm talking to developers all the time, and it tells me, just the conversation. From the conversation, I'm gathering, first of all, that they don't have, not necessarily they don't have the personal experience, but there's no one in that organization to pull their sleeve and say, no, this is not how this works. They're trying to imagine a world. They're trying to build a world for us, for the end user, while they're outside of that world. They're not part of the world. That's an incredible challenge. And what I'm seeing more often than not is that the end user ends up with a very painful experience. The next thing you know, you get very low adoption rates. The next thing you know, for sure, is going to be the client dropping out that piece of tech. Does it sound like that's an accurate description of how tech is being built in our space?
Totally. It's to your point, and what I mentioned earlier on the customer journey mapping, I don't see enough of that. I did actually go through an experience with a really up and coming company that was very interested in that, and that's how they're building out their software. And that's the way it should be done, right? But historically, I don't think that it has been done that way. We know it hasn't been done that way. And having some beta testing with some really diverse participation across different types of multifamily scattered site is important to be able to build this correctly. And then to test it, before it's launched, to work out the bugs appropriately. And I don't claim to be a developer of software, but I can see as an operator where the trouble is once it gets deployed, and that is someone didn't think this through. Someone didn't think this process through enough and didn't ask, the right people how this was actually going to work in real time. It doesn't make sense.
I do want to switch gears, Suzanne, and I want to talk about leadership. So before we get into any questions, the very first question to you is, what's your definition of leadership?
I'm going to try to be succinct. I think that leadership is about opening doors, providing opportunity. It's about guidance. It's about, I call it carefrontation. I didn't make that word up. I stole it, but I like it. And that's confronting people with care so that they have good feedback. It is owning it. It's taking responsibility when things don't work out, no matter who on the team, your team, is at fault. Ultimately, if you're accountable, you own it. It's your responsibility if it fails. I think leadership is about the vision and being able to communicate it in a way where people can see it and hear it and feel it. And then it's about helping the team execute it, showing them the way.
My very simplistic definition of leadership is influence. And I can't help myself but to think that the leadership industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Everywhere you look, people talk about it. They want to be inspired by it. They're buying products. There's so much literature out there about leadership, but I don't see a significant improvement at the leadership level in real life. So where is the disconnect? Like when do we cut through the BS and get to the real deal, and how can we raise the bar and improve the level, the quality of leadership overall in society? It's not just industry. I think in society in general, like, we're starving for leaders. There's a big void out there. We're looking around, but there's just not so many people to look up to. How do we make that a little better?
Yeah. Well, I think that the time of wanting to be like Mike or wanting to be like the best leader you've had. You're right. There's some lacking there. Like who are really looking up to these days, but they're still there. And I think that at that incremental point where people are at the stretch, they've done what they're going to do and they want more. That's where the mentorship and the guidance and the tools and the push, the real partnership between us as leaders and our emerging leaders needs to be. You and I have talked about this, and I feel particularly passionate about it, especially as of late. I think that there's a real lack of emerging leader training. And we typically will see a person that is doing exceptionally well in their role, and we promote them. And then we expect them to just do it. And there's not a lot of how to. I think there's a fallacy in believing that leaders are born and not made. I think you can learn leadership. And I think that, the discipline and the feedback and being in a room of bigger fish is also really important. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and I said to them, how often are people giving you feedback? And he said, well, not really much anymore. And I said, well, you're in the wrong room. He's reached the top of his area. but there's another area, there's another room for him to go into. And so I think showing people all along the way where those rooms are, and it's uncomfortable. Like, let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You got to stretch yourself. You've got to move yourself. As a society, I think that how we look at leadership is, gee, I wish I could have it. I really, really want it. I don't know how to get there. And I need somebody to show me.
Suzanne, my next question for you is about the key lessons or experiences that have shaped your career and leadership style. Could you share some of the ones that come to mind, the most important?
This is going to seem really simple, but I would say what I've really learned over time is to listen, to just be quiet and listen, to be uncomfortable in a little bit of silence, to let people come to the answer themselves and not always give it, to really get comfortable with failure. That's been really hard. And I continuously work on that because I don't like to fail, but it happens and we should be failing. I think learning from failure and not repeating it over and over is really important. So debriefing it, looking enough in the rearview mirror to say, okay, this is what I got from it, and then plowing ahead. Not sitting in it, moving ahead. Accepting and giving feedback is also something I've really learned over time, that, it's going to be okay if you tell someone what you really think. That, and again, we all have different places that we come from and things that we've experienced that might cause us to not, feel comfortable doing certain things. And, speaking my mind, and I know many people that will be listening to this will be like, that is not Suzanne. I know she always speaks her mind. It has not been an easy thing for me to do with confidence. And so, I would just say those are some of the big lessons. Like, just try not to make the same mistakes, especially for the big ones, more than a couple of times in your life. Learn from it. Learn what to do and what not to do, and listen more.
Suzanne, what inspired you to found Here to Elevate? What was behind, the conception of this your newest baby?
Yes. Well, we have all spent some time, I think it's been, at the forefront of leadership for a while in developing our why and being able to speak around that and build your life around your why. Because if you do that, if you're really connected to your purpose, you'll be more successful. That's sort of the academic of it. But the real reason behind forming Here to Elevate was to really multiply the impact. So what I'm good at, or what God's given me for talents, or I've developed over time, why not multiply that in a way that affects several businesses at the same time instead of just one? And so how can I make the biggest impact? What's the vehicle for that? And elevate, I think it's the most popular word, and that's going around right now. It just spoke to me as what I intend on doing, no matter the level of our interaction, whether it's just a conversation or if we're in partnership on something. I want to leave that person elevated.
The next question is long, so I'm gonna try to break it in smaller pieces, right? Because it's a lot for anyone to remember. In your biography, you mentioned a focus on vision, alignment, centralization, and people. And I want to ask you to elaborate on each one, on the role of each one of these elements, the role that it plays in your approach to leadership and business growth. So let's start with vision.
Yeah. And I've narrowed it down even further. It's really vision, people, and execution. And so I'll start with that first one, vision. people have to know where they're going. They have to be able to see it. And oftentimes that's not clear. It may be clear to one person or two people on a team or in an organization, but if the vision is not clear for the entire organization all the way down to the front line, there's going to be a miss. So I think spending time making sure that a vision is clear, that it's been communicated, that it is communicated again, and it's revisited regularly is part of the infrastructure of building a successful business. You got to know where you're going before you start down the path.
Can the vision change all the time? I know that you said you'll have to like keep going back to the vision. I'm guessing the purpose is that it's to assess it, right? You got to go back not only to make sure that you stay on vision, but then also to not necessarily challenge, but to assess your vision and ask the question: is it still our vision? Is that a thing? Do you think that vision should like typically should stay the same over time, or the longer change? What's your experience, your organizational experience with vision?
Yeah, I've seen vision change. Obviously, I've seen owners or visionaries, if you will, change the direction that they want to take themselves or the company. They may see that the vision is off from where they really want to go. And yes, revisiting it to help course correct is important. I think changing it all the time just becomes confusing for people. So I think doing the work up front on what it is you really want to accomplish and possibly not looking too far out in advance. I know that sounds funny. Some people have end goals. They know what they are, right? They know in 15 years, this is exactly where they're going to be. Most of the time in business, you want to break it up into chunks. And again, simplicity is really key when you're talking about where do we want to go and who are we bringing along for the ride.
Next, I want to talk about your role as a Vistage CEO coach. And I want to ask you, what are the most common challenges or issues that you see, people that you're coaching having, or businesses that you're helping, or the business leaders, and how do you help them address?
Yeah, I think it's a little different role in for each. So for Here to Elevate, when I'm coaching, it's different. It is really the power of the one-on-one. In Vistage, the power lies in the group. I still have coaching one-on-ones with each member, but the significant impact is the power of the peer group and the room that you sit in, which is non-competing CEOs, business leaders from different industries that do the work of carefrontation, feedback, issue processing. That's the real power of that. I think some of the challenges that are universal across the board that I'm seeing are feeling like it's lonely at the top. There's not a lot of people giving feedback. People, hiring, recruiting, very big challenge across all industries. In this day today, in this uncertain time, there's a lot of actual hope and positivity about the cycles and where we're headed economically. And yet at the same time, there's a lot of, oh boy, we've been riding a really great ride for a long time. And now the curtain's been pulled back and our operations are not where they need to be. So there's a lot of focus on how can we shore up our operations, make sure that we are bringing the right people into the organization, right people, right seats. And then how do we really build the efficiencies to execute timely and efficiently That's been another, challenge across the board. But for coaching and the real interaction with others has been, how do I get the best out of myself and my team? How do I get the business from where I'm at today to the next level of where I want to go? I tried this for this many years. It worked. Now I know I have to change how I'm going to get to the next level. What does that look like? So those are some of the conversations that are going on, and the differences really between Vistage and my business.
Company culture is something that I'm deeply passionate about. So the next question is going to be about culture. What are some key strategies for fostering a positive company culture and cultivating a strong team within an organization?
Yeah. I think that it starts at the top. I think that a culture is defined by the people that you have in your organization. And so that right people, right seat, the core value alignment has to be one of the first check-ins of hiring. Making sure that we're not bringing people into an organization that aren't aligned. Because once you have people in the organization that are not aligned, they can do a lot of damage. And they may be the people that are the most, that are delivering the most results. But long-term and ultimately, they can ruin an organization. So it's very important to me too. Adrienne, if you can't tell, I'm super passionate about culture. I think that making sure that when you're talking about core values, you're talking about not just the words that are slapped on the wall, but that you're talking about what does it look like when it's in? What are the behaviors around those core values that everyone can identify with? And that everybody in the organization is part of that, not just the leadership team or a group of people, but everybody is involved and can feel it. I think all those things are really important around culture.
We're witnessing in multifamily, especially a lot of companies growing at very fast pace, and there's a lot of pain that comes with that growth. And I think the very easy way out is a response to say, well, it's the growing pains, right? So how do we do this without growing pains? Is there a way when we scale an organization? Is there a way to prep upfront so we don't have to go through growing pains? I think a lot of talent is being lost in our process. Like we're basically through those growing pains, we're like a big grinder, and it's a grinder of people. We keep grinding people. We get them in and we push them very fast at the fastest pace towards the back door. Just get out of here. It's like, why are you even here? While we're complaining that there's not enough people in a talent pool, we're getting them in, and as soon as we get them in, we do the kind of the best we can, not in an intentional way, but when you look from the outside, that's exactly what happened. Hostile environment, overworked, understaffed, go to the back door, and they start another journey, and we end up worse off than we were to begin with. So, growing pains. How do we plan to avoid or to minimize that pain of growing an organization and scaling?
Yeah. Minimize, right? And all growth is a little uncomfortable, and at times very uncomfortable. But I think, the best prevention is in the process, developing processes that are the infrastructure to the organization that everybody learns and knows and that work, and they're repeatable, right? It's like the difference between when you're part of a startup and you don't have all of that infrastructure in place. You make a lot of mistakes. You try a lot of things, and it can be really hard. So a startup mentality is different than perhaps what a lot of us are used to. And yet that's what we put people in as a startup when we don't have good process in place, and we wonder why they fail. So I think process is really important. I also think training is really important, that people development piece. And it's the first position that gets cut. Training and development is still considered an extra, an ancillary, lovely, that we, if we can't afford it, we're not meeting our bottom line numbers, that's where we're going to cut. Meanwhile, we haven't trained some of our leaders to develop other leaders. And so we wonder why things start to crumble and fall apart. I think growth can happen when you have good process in place and that you have a good forecast of, here's how quickly I'm going to grow. Here is the scope of the growth. I'm not going to, like in our space, let's say, I'm not going to grow by taking on every single opportunity. Like narrowing the opportunity, having that be your business model and framework, and saying, I'm not going outside of this, even if I'm desperate to, or I feel like I need to. I'm going to stick in my lane with what I'm deciding is going to be my business. And then really focusing on hiring ahead of time. Like, what does that look like? What does the people plan look like down the road? And what are the resources we're going to need to be able to support that? That thought, that forethought doesn't always happen as well as it could. So focusing on that and spending time on that plan, on that growth plan itself and that model could prevent a lot of pain.
Let's talk about you as the speaker and contributor. And I wanted to ask you, what are some topics that you're most passionate about and enjoy sharing with your audiences?
Well, I love talking about centralization, process, I like to call it. It could be called all kinds of things, specialization. But how do we really, make what we do as efficient, cost-effective, easy for our customers to use? How do we do that at every juncture of the cycle? So that fascinates me. I love talking about it and talking to other people about it. Right now, and I'd say over the last year and a half, it's been around people. I'm really feeling the pain of what people are going through out in our space and beyond with finding the right home, for their work and feeling fulfilled, and, having that be a good thing in their life. And so, for me, I love talking about how can we develop our emerging leaders. That particular niche that I talked about earlier is of interest because I think that's where the real power of the future is. It's not in the panel of experts. It's in the next generation of experts. They're the ones that are going to be really making all of this happen. And so how are we really helping them, mentoring them, leading them to their next level?
Talking about the next generation, I want to ask you for some pieces of advice for aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs looking to make a significant impact in their industries and their workplace.
Yeah. What's great is that, there still is a lot of businesses being formed and, technology and innovation. Innovation is my favorite word right now, besides elevate. So I think having that mindset and continuing to cultivate that in your culture and in your work is really important. For entrepreneurs, it's an adventure, and to think big, all the while getting into the weeds and the details of your business are exciting times. And surround yourself with people that know more than you and know that that's okay. There's a lot of people who want to see you succeed. And so, for future entrepreneurs, it is really about surrounding yourself with bigger fish, learning and jumping.
Suzanne, you had a diverse and extensive career in the business world. Can you share some key lessons or experiences that have significantly shaped your approach to leadership and coaching?
Yes, I can. I think about all of the time I've spent in particular roles that were not necessarily the right one for me. And what I mean by that is feeling like I needed to progress in my career. I might have sat in roles that weren't the best for me or for the organization. And so the lesson learned is to know thyself, know what your strengths are, lean into those, and whatever you're weak at, let go of. Someone else will be brilliant at them. Have them on your team. Don't worry about having to be great at everything, because you won't be. And we talk about that all the time, but I don't think people really hear that. I think that they feel like they need to do everything. There are people that want to do the things that you don't want to do or aren't good at, and they're great at them. So in terms of, lessons learned in business, it really does come back to people and understanding the dynamics of a powerful team. If you look at a powerful team, you probably shouldn't see someone that's exactly like you on it. The diversity, the depth, the knowledge, all of that has to be diverse for a team to be great. And you can go it alone, but you know what they say about that. You only get so far. So
Let's talk a little bit about the future. How do you see the future of the multifamily space? What are some things that are getting you very excited about the future? And what are some areas of maybe opportunity or concern to you looking
I think
forward?
these are the most exciting times. And I've been in it for a really long time. So I'm super excited about right now. I love all of the people coming into the space. I love our emerging leaders. There's so many of them out there that are making an impact, and they're getting out into the scene, and we're seeing them speak, and we're seeing the things that are important to them and to their organizations from their perspective. So we have to do a lot more of that. Like, we should be seeing different faces represent our industry and really get behind them and support them and mentor them and lead them in that way. I also think the technology is always exciting. While it's challenging, it's the thing that builds efficiency when it is applied correctly in organizations. And so some of the tech that's happening, and I wasn't able to go to OpTech this year, I was there last year, but one of the things that I see happening is more thought going into the type of technology that's coming to the forefront, and more competition, which I also think is good in all economies. Good to have some competition. It makes it better for the consumer too, quite frankly, to have that competition. And I do think we're getting to see the value of the back to basics, right? Like really looking at shoring up our operations, pulling back the curtain, looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and going back to some of those basics that, we really can't innovate very much, like treating people well, making sure our customers happy, treating our fellow teammates with respect. And I think some of those basic things that we're going to find ourselves more focused on are going to benefit us greatly moving forward.
Suzanne, great conversation. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I also wanted to give you the opportunity to share some final thoughts, maybe an answer to a question I wish I would have asked, maybe some advice, maybe anything that you would like to add in closing to this conversation.
Thanks, Adrian. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed our conversations. I think you are an amazing human in our space and just in the world. Keep doing what you're doing. And I would just encourage everyone else to get in those rooms where they don't necessarily feel like they belong, because they do. And really just keep pushing, because that's where the great things happen. And if you get, where you find that you're stuck or you're stumbling, reach out to somebody, reach out to us, reach out to, all of the support structure within our industry. There's a lot of it. We have a lot of networking going on right now. I won't mention names because she's already famous, but we've got a lot of really great stuff that people can partake in. So reach out and get connected.
Suzanne, how can our audience get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. So you can find me there. And then I have my website, and that is Here to Elevate, and it's with a number. So it's here with the number 2, elevate.com. And you can learn more about what I'm up to and doing, and also how to get a hold of me.
Suzanne, thank you so much again for being here today with us. We're taking an hour of your busy day to share your wisdom. We hope to get you back here at some point. There's just so many other questions that I had on my list that I didn't get to ask. But I hope to get you back here at one point.
Let's do it. And again, it was my pleasure, Adrian. Thank you so much.
Everybody, thank you very much for watching us today. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and we hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.